So, it was a couple of years ago. My son comes home from school and he's kind of tearing up, or I could tell he had like a bad day, right? And when my son came back from school and I saw him crying, I asked him what's wrong. And he was upset because one of his friends had called him weird. And I could tell he didn't really like to be called weird. And so I get down on one knee and I talk to him to get to on his level. And I said, "Son, you are weird." And he goes, "What?" Like he's not understanding why his own father would call him weird after his friend called him this name, this bad thing called weird. And I said, "You know what? It's great that you're weird. Plus, not just you are weird, but I'm weird too. And your sister's weird, your mother's weird, but don't tell her I said that." And I basically started to tell him that what makes you weird is what makes you wonderful. What makes you weird is what makes you different and unique, and it's exactly why I love you. And he started to get it. He started to realize that being weird wasn't actually a bad thing. We started talking more about, well, what's the opposite? Being the same as everybody else? Being average? Being weird means you're standing out. And that's a great skill and a great thing to have happen. So he got it. He realized it. And I wanted to start with that story because I think when we're kids, even when we are born, we just have this inherent sort of capability to feel like that by being the one that's different is being the one that's wrong. And I think that comes back to just human psychology, right? It comes back to just survival, right? When you really think about it, maybe, yeah, back in the day when we were all cave people and there were a bunch of animals around that could potentially eat us and kill us, being the different one was actually the thing that would get you killed, right? Being the different one either got you ostracized from the group, perhaps didn't give you as much support because we're kind of very community-based, or that's how we were grown up to be. Perhaps it's because you are overstepping with where people know you to be, right? And you've heard me talk about this bucket of crabs that we live in, this idea that we live in this world that is comparable to a bucket of crabs. If you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, live crabs, none of them are ever going to crawl out, because as soon as one, the weird one, starts to crawl out of that bucket, the other ones start to bring that crab back into the bucket. So you never have to worry about that because they all kind of grab and pinch each other as one starts to crawl out. And I think we can definitely relate to the crab that wants to crawl out of that bucket. We are the one who wants to be where perhaps we're not comfortable or not where everybody else is. But at the same time, we're battling this sort of existential human want to be a part of a community, to be a part of something. And I'm here to tell you that your weird is the way. So let's talk about that and more today. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you. Team Flynn, the quarantine, here today on a Monday, day 271 of the income stream in a row. We are approaching day 300. We're within 1 month of day 300 here. Hook me up with a subscribe if you can, if you haven't been here before, if you're just catching this for the first time. Thank you so much. I don't want you to miss anything else that we talk about, because I'm here to help you not just make more money, save more time, and help more people too, but I want you to grow. And part of growth happens up here. So today we're going to talk about our weird. I want to share what's weird about me and how I've been able to take advantage of that and utilize that. And I want to know what's weird about you too. So I'm going to ask you at some point here during the live chat, or if you're hashtag team replay in the replay in the comments as well, we're going to share with each other. We're going to be weird together. And if y'all don't want to be here with other weird people, well, you can go and leave, because this is where the weirdos hang out. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Let's start the show.
Your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
That was way too early. Well, I'll try to get it in again. Well, maybe. It's close. It's close. Your weird is your win. Embrace your inner weirdo, Rick says. Love it. What makes the world weird is what makes the world wonderful. That's fantastic, Doug. Thank you. Kenny, I'm a 50-year-old man with Batman and Black Panther sheets. LOL. Dude, do you see? Okay, first of all, Kenny, thank you so much for that. Let's see. Now we know a lot about you. Now we can understand more about the kind of person you are. And yes, in one level, when you start to put yourself out there like this, not just you, Kenny, but anybody out there, you start to put a line in the ground. And the cool thing is when you put that line in the ground, it becomes a place for people to come and grow with you on. They can come to your side, if you will, and they can better connect with you, right? Success online, especially today, and just in the world in general, to me, is about connections and relationships. How in the world can people understand that you are different, that you are special, that you are you, without fully putting yourself out there, right? Versus if we try to please everybody, if we try to stay average, or we're perhaps too worried about those unique things about us, well, then we're doing ourselves and others who could connect with us a disservice too. And it's what makes you weird that allows people to connect with you. When I first started business online, I was looking everywhere for information. This was back in 2008. And there were a lot of people that I came across, and a lot of people just, either didn't rub me the right way, or that just they were just another person to regurgitate a lot of the same information. But one example of a person who I found who I gravitated toward was a man named Jeremy Shoemaker. And Jeremy Shoemaker had gotten pretty famous for, and you might remember this, he had an AdSense check that was, I think, over $100,000. And he had this check, sort of like a picture of it. I think it was $100,000. And that, at the time when AdSense was like the way to make money online through putting ads on your website, this was like a huge inspiration to a lot of people. But it was, to me, it was just like, oh, there's another person, sharing how much money they were making. But it was an authentic check, and you could see it, and it was different. It was a person who was actually showing that what they were doing was actually working, and that's part of what drew me in. But what got me to stay was the fact that every month, Jeremy would come out with a post about UFC, or Ultimate Fighting Championship, and he would talk about the upcoming bout and the fighters that were involved, and he just was a super nerd about those kinds of things. And I wasn't a super nerd about UFC, never was, but a bunch of my friends were into it, and I kind of followed it. I went to a UFC bout once in, I went to the Octagon once in Las Vegas, and then having come across Jeremy and just knowing this thing about him, even though I wasn't a huge fan of it, I got to know him a little bit better. And just knowing that about him and realizing that this theme of UFC kept popping up every single month from him, I just got to know him as a person. Even though I never got to speak to him in person, even though I never befriended him, I felt like he was a friend in a way, because I knew some stuff about him that are similar to things I knew about my friends, whether they knew or followed UFC or not. Caleb here says, love UFC. It is pretty insane, to be honest, but it's pretty cool. As long as everybody remains safe. Love watching UFC, says Peasant Uprising. Right, Kyle here says, I've been trying to be normal my whole life. This year, I've tried to embrace my inner nerd, and I'm a lot happier. I love that too, Kyle. So this isn't just a method to collect more friends, to find more people to connect with online. It's a way for us to just be fully who we are, and to be more comfortable in our own skin. And so when we really can understand that the way that you are is your best advantage, then a lot of things begin to change, right? When I first started publishing online to help people with their entrepreneurial endeavors on Smart Passive Income, this was at the end of 2008, a lot of my articles were written similar to the articles that I would be reading elsewhere. They were articles that were a little bit more professional. They were articles that were maybe written with a lot more, science and like that kind of stuff involved versus just really being me. And I remember specifically, I went to have lunch with Jeremy Franson. Jeremy Franson is one of the co-hosts of the Internet Business Mastery podcast. This podcast was the podcast that got me my start, the podcast who inspired me to start my own podcast, etc. And he had moved to San Diego. Jeremy moved to San Diego. And if you've read Let Go, you might remember he came to San Diego. I got to meet him and a few other entrepreneurs, and that really inspired me. And he was the one to tell me to write an ebook study guide to help people pass an architectural exam that I was very involved with. And that changed everything for me. So I owe Jeremy and Jason both Jeremy Franson and Jason Van Orden, both so much. And I have to give them credit always for helping me get my start. But I remember going to lunch with him one day, and this was after the business started to roll and, smart passive income was existing, and my architecture business was still going very strong. Still going today, by the way, but it's not making anywhere near the amount it was before. But I remember sitting with him at lunch, and he's like, so what's next for you? What's coming for you in 2011? And I gave him a list of all the new business ventures and ideas that I had in mind. These were solutions to problems that I had as an entrepreneur, from review websites to potentially a hosting company to some of these other things. And I gave him this list, and he looked it over, and there was like a dozen ideas of new things I wanted to create. It very, very squirrel syndrome. Probably, if I could look back, probably shouldn't have just come up with new ideas that I was going to dedicate that time to anyway. But as we all know, we all love to try to do as many things as possible. And I gave him this list, and he looks at me and he goes, there's one thing missing about all these ideas. And I was like, what is it? Are they not in the right market? Do you need more information about them? And he's like, well, the one thing that's missing from each of these dozen ideas is you. And the one thing that I know, because you've been so open on smart passive income and me getting to know you, is that you just have like this weird way of approaching things for people. And like, those were literally his words. And he's like, well, all these things, like anybody can create these things, but what makes them unique to you? How does Pat Flynn get involved with each of these things? That's what I want to know about. And he was like, you know what? I think that if I were you, I would just put more of you into what you already have. So this is at the time that my podcast then switched from bi-weekly to weekly. This is when I started to tell more stories and get more comfortable about just who I was. And this was when eventually I wrote my book, Let Go, which was my full story, all of me inside of a published book. And it was launched and became a bestseller on Amazon. And I got to give credit to Jeremy, because he really taught me that I was holding myself back from being fully myself to everybody that I was wanting to connect with online. And it was interesting because something just kind of unlocked for me the moment that happened. The ability for people to see who the real Pat Flynn was behind the scenes. I'm trying to remember the timeline specifically, because there was a very specific strategy that I did create. I think that conversation actually was prior to the Smart Passive Income podcast coming out. And one thing I do at the beginning of each of my podcasts is I put a fun, random, unique, weird fact about myself at the beginning of every one of my episodes. I've done this now for nearly 500 episodes, and I still find things that are very weird and unique about me to put on there. From the fact that I am deathly afraid of spiders to obviously a huge Back to the Future fan, which many of you know. And that's not something I hide. This comes across in my content. I'm still able to teach. Last week, I taught a whole lesson about future-proofing your business. But what theme did I make it around? My favorite movie, right? That's just very, very much me. You can even see in the background here some helmets for some things that I'm very, very interested in and super nerdy about, right? And oftentimes when I coach business owners and entrepreneurs, even at the high level, I just wrapped up a year-long program called the Accelerator Program, which is for six-figure earners and above. And we had 12 students, and more than half of them, you could just tell. And I had to really take it out of them, the idea that they needed to be fully more themselves. They need to, stop trying to build a professional business. And also, on top of that, fully embracing who they are and what they're about. And that involved what their business unique selling propositions and advantages were, but also just what makes them them. And so I'd love to ask you, chat, and if you happen to be on Team Replay as well, hook me up with the hashtag Team Replay in the comments. But I want to hear from the chat who's here, and I'm going to pop it up on the screen. I want to know what is unique about you. What's weird? What makes you weird, right? It could be anything. You don't have to explain it either. Just what makes you weird. Even Kenny earlier just sharing that he sleeps in Batman, sheets. Number one, kudos to you for stepping up to share that. And I'm so thankful that you feel this is a comfortable place to share things like that. But also at the same time, we know more about you. Like, I imagine just from that one little random fact alone that we could have a really fun conversation together about Batman and all this fun stuff. DC versus Marvel could be a fun, interesting argument that we could have together. Jal says, what do you do for a living? I help people make more money, I help people save more time, and I help people help others too. Zig Ziglar once said, "You can never be poor if you help others get what they want." And my job is to help you build a career, build a business, whether it's on the side or full time, that fits into your life, that fully embraces who you are, that allows you to connect with others and serve in your own special way. And I create solutions, both technical, AKA how do you podcast? How do you put these things together? How do you live stream on YouTube? And a lot of similar to what we're talking about today, a lot of the stuff that happens up here. So a lot of people consider me their coach. I don't consider myself a life coach. I'm just here to serve, and I do that through example, if that makes sense. Kenny says, I'm a huge nerd. Love it. So let me see. Nomadables. Well, I'm so deeply passionate about being able to work from my laptop so that I can travel and work from anywhere. Minimalism and freedom are two principles I'm constantly running towards. I love that. I absolutely love that. And so that to me means that when it comes to productivity strategies that perhaps you share, right? And this is even in your brand name, nomadables, the ability for us to be nomads, meaning not mad because you're not hunkered down into just one place, right? That's why it's called nomad, right? Because you're not mad. You can't be trapped. You don't feel trapped, right? Nomad. Luke says, I still rollerblade, right? I still rollerblade, dude. So I had once identified as an aggro blader, an aggressive blader, somebody who would get my K2 fatties on, put some grind plates on my in between my second and third wheel, and I would skate at the park with my friends, and we'd grind rails, we'd go down and up ramps and go to schools and stuff. And, Luke, you and I could potentially have a conversation about that, right? So now I know more about you, which I love it. I'm insanely obsessed with all things snacks, which is why I started my podcast. My family thinks I'm, quote unquote, nuts. Good choice of words there. I love it, Bobby Ann. I love it. What is your favorite snack? Because you see how these sorts of little things that on the surface don't have anything to do with our business, our brand, building revenue online. This has actually everything to do with building what? A relationship. That's right. A relationship with people. Because now, Bobby N, I know you like snacks. Now we can have some fun discussions about what are our favorite snacks, or do you make your own snacks? And, all those kinds of fun things, right? I love it. Maple says, I can make my eyelids flick abnormally fast. It looks like a glitch. See, that's super cool too, and random and fun. And I think this is why, as soon as I started to embrace my fully weird, only child self, I was able to make just more connections with people. Now, every single podcast episode that I have that has that fun little random fact about me is one that allows me to potentially connect with people more. Whether or not a person maybe heard the one about me falling in love with music and joining the marching band. Well, if a marching band person hears that, they're that much more connected to me already. And it only took a few seconds to share, right? Darold says, I'm a 44-year-old gaming geek and also have a sense of humor that makes most people go, what? I love it, Darold. And so I hope that if I were to watch some of your videos, that would come across almost immediately, right? Yet too often we try to be like somebody else. I remember when I was writing my book, Will It Fly, right? I was writing this book in 2015. It's a book about how to validate and test your business ideas before you waste your time and money. It's available on Amazon if you want to check it out. It's called Will It Fly. And when I started writing this book, I had just gotten off of reading, I think it was Blink and David and Goliath from Malcolm Gladwell. So Malcolm Gladwell was on my mind. And I didn't have the large poofy hair like he did, but I did have his writing style in my mind as I was writing my book. And as a result of that, I was trying to make Will It Fly something that wasn't me. I was trying to make it a book that was based off of these college studies, and I was going into psychology books, and I was reading them and trying to decipher and pull out and decode these things. That's just not who I am. I don't work like that. I work from sharing experiences from things that I've done, whether I win or fail. And then I took that to heart, and I started sharing that in Will It Fly instead. And so my book is nothing like Malcolm Gladwell's book. I very much appreciate and love Malcolm Gladwell and his book and his work, but that's not how I write or who I am and why and what I should be writing about or how I should be writing. So I started to embrace what I knew best. Will It Fly starts with a story about my son on his birthday attempting to fold a paper airplane and absolutely failing miserably and giving up immediately. I directly tied that personal story to the story that all of us entrepreneurs have of trying something because we saw somebody else do it, failing and thinking we're not good enough, right? In the story, I talk about certain business aspects that I've had experience with versus these studies that are outside of me. And these are able to allow me to better connect with people who are on the other end too. I haven't had a job, says Gail, in 20 years. I love having the freedom to determine my future and how I spend my life. I saw my old manager at a networking meeting. He told everyone I was a terrible employee. That's a great compliment, right? You are a terrible employee, which means you are going to be your best boss ever. Jai says, well, I am from India. Love to watch you and tell what crazy things in the future. Tell what's going to be crazy things in the future. That's some of my favorite things to do, Jai. Thank you so much for being here, by the way, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. I love just discussing with this amazing group of people here, like, what's the future going to be like? What's 2021 going to bring for us? Hopefully some great things, hopefully coming out of the pandemic, a nice, incredible roaring 20s for us. What is the future of technology? What is the future of electronic vehicles? What is with SN8 launching the other day and having a massive explosion at the end of it, which was actually a good thing. What do we learn from that, and how does that actually play a role in our journey to interplanetary, colonization? What? Crazy. I think what is tricky is finding a way to turn any of the content that we give freely into a business, says Violet. That is definitely a challenge, for sure. A lot of people worry about giving away so much, because if we give it all away, then what do we have left to charge for? And that's a very, very logical way to approach it. And it's a very, very good thing to think about. But at the same time, I found that the more we give, the more we get back. Whether it be a direct transaction, a share, feedback, a fan, I found that the more that I lean into offering help, the more help people want. For example, with Will It Fly, although that wasn't a free thing, I gave away all the recipe of how to build a business, validate it, get it started, all in that book, $14.95, or even less on Amazon Kindle. Yet, even after giving away the entire formula, sharing examples, and hopefully encouraging people to do, I still had people message me back and say, Pat, I want more. I need some help. I need some accountability. Can you go deeper into this? My podcasting course is our most popular course, serving over 3,000 people, paying over $700 for access to that. You can do the math. Pretty amazing results. Yet at the same time, I also have the #1 YouTube video on how to start a podcast. I think it's #2 ranking right now, but it is ranking in terms of number of views. Well over 1.1 million views of people looking for information about how to start a podcast. And yet, even though that's free, there are people who want to go deeper and people who want to directly get access. So there's a number of ways to sort of delineate this, right? The ability for us to share the why and the what, and then we have people pay for the how. The ability to share all of it, including the how, but potentially charge to have it done for them, or to coach them through the process, or to get more information and accountability. The ability for us to get paid via other outside means. Although we are giving away everything for free, we're also generating a lot of trust with our audience, and that's something that's of value too, to especially sponsors and advertisers, or even fans wanting to help you and support you through means like Patreon and Supercast, for example, right? Money Man, love you, Pat. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too, Money Man. Cheers. Now everybody's talking about snacks. Stephanie, I was on top 4% of my graduating class in high school, but didn't go to college. Had no interest. Just started right into the workforce. Weird in 1983, but not recommended maybe. That's definitely weird for 1983. That would be definitely looked down upon, actually, Stephanie. So congrats to you for just already knowing coming out of high school what you wanted to do. And, you probably got a little flack for that, maybe perhaps from your parents or guardians. And today, it's a little bit more common to go against the grain. It's a little bit more common for a person to teach their kids, okay, college may be in your future. We want to set you up for that. But if you find that there's a different path, that's okay. And that's what we're teaching our kids. Whenever my son starts talking about college, if he goes, yeah, when I go to college, I actually immediately go in and I say, if you go to college. And I don't say that because I don't think he can get into college. I'm pretty sure he can. But it's the idea that, does that actually make sense for him? And I want him to know that his story is not written yet. He is writing it as we go, and he has the choice to go this way or that way, if that makes sense. Can you repeat that interesting quote about the what and the how? So that would be giving away the what and the why and charging for the how. That's one way that people sort of delineate whether or not they charge for something or not. But I like to tend to err toward giving away even the how, because I like to show people some quick wins and results and the fact that they can do it too. For example, one way that we do this, if I want to promote my email marketing course or promote an affiliate program for ConvertKit, which is an email service provider, I want to give some people some wins first. So introducing our 100 emails challenge, where between 0 and 3 days, you can generate an email list of 100 people for free. You don't have to subscribe or download or pay for anything. And that little win, that how-to, here's how to go about starting, gets people to go, oh my gosh, I can actually do this? What's the next step? I know that I can get value here because you've already given it to me. Okay, where do I go from here? Okay, here's our course if you want to take this further, or just keep doing what you were doing, right? So hopefully that makes sense. That's the plan, to give away enough to build trust and hopefully get a following as I build my business, right? And this is very common at the start. You might not know what the solution that you might need to offer your audience is going to be. But if you can make that connection with your audience, like we're talking about today, embracing your weird, you're able to then make a connection, essentially triggering a relationship to start. And then you can develop that relationship. You can then, whether through email or direct conversation on a direct message platform of some kind, or even a phone conversation, a Zoom call, an interview, whatever, Zoom, you are then more able to discover what it is that the true pains and problems are of this person and people like them. What are their biggest challenges? What are their biggest struggles? That's where solutions come into play. And that's where you can then develop your own products. You could promote other people's products as an affiliate. That's affiliate marketing, and get paid for that. You could create better free resources that directly relate to who those people are. But it all starts with getting an audience to notice you, to pay attention, and to keep coming back. And the more you embrace your weird, the thing that's unique about you, the thing that's something different about you versus others who may be offering the same exact information. For example, if you went to Berkeley and you were teaching how to, be an architect or something, and there was another person, or what's this example? Basically, there's two people who teach the same thing. One went to the same school as you, the other one did not. Everything else is the same. We all know which one you're choosing, right? The one that you have this connection with, if that makes sense, right? Moneyman says, question, I love hardcore metal music, but I'm thinking if I share this to my tribe, people won't relate. You think this is good? Here's where people will relate. You love metal music. What music does your audience love? And you each have your own unique things to share. You all love music, but there's nothing that says if a person doesn't also love metal music, that's not going to work, right? I think that you might perhaps turn some heads, but you're going to have now something that's interesting about you that people can share. Oh yeah, Moneyman, right? He teaches all this amazing financial advice. Did you know that he's into metal music? Like, you wouldn't even think about that. That's crazy, but he just has such great advice. And now it's like, oh, the financial guy who likes metal music, right? So, you'd be like, hey, I like metal music. What do you like? And we like, that's not to say that it means that It doesn't mean there's a negative. It doesn't mean if metal music, then great. If not metal music, then not great. It just, more about you. Great. Let me learn more about you. Great. Right? I totally agree. I'm very weird and awkward, LOL, but I know my people out there who appreciate that combo. As we often hear, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? Your vibe attracts your tribe. So on a scale of 0, not sharing anything about your vibe, and 10, you are the most upfront about who you are person in the world, online and in your brand, where would you gauge you are right now? From 0 to 10. We'd just love to see sort of where you're at in the chat. Hi, sir. Hi, technical guys. Jai says, bye, guys. I think I should start interviews with you all. I'm 14. Started hustling. Man, if I started hustling when I was 14, who knows how much further ahead I'd be. Congrats to you. Congrats to you. Keep up the good work. Cool. Now, it's interesting because we're going to get a whole bunch of numbers. I see Scrap Happy with a 9, Leo with a 1. And it's interesting because we might think that we're a certain number one way or another, but the way that our brand actually portrays that could be different, right? I think that the website weekend reviews that we do on Saturday, we just did one on Saturday. It was a short one because we had the Miracle Morning movie premiere right after, and I wanted to make sure we had time for that. But on Saturdays, we review YouTube channels and websites. And the number one most common issue is that I find with these website reviews and YouTube channel reviews is it's hard to connect with who the person is. We don't yet know until, like, it might take several videos for a person to get to know you. But unfortunately, we sometimes have just a couple minutes to work with. And if a person doesn't get the gist, number one, we hook them in with what we can do for them, right? If you start with, if Moneyman says, hey, I'm a metal music loving man who loves to help you make more money. That's a lot of M's, but I kind of like how that rolled off the tongue. That's like, whoa, that you started with you and you made it centric about you first, and then you got into why are you helpful versus I help you make more money. I also happen to like metal music too. Well, you've hooked me in, and now I'm like, oh, that's something unique about you. Do you see how that just like little bit of change can go a very long way? And especially online, we need to start with first, how are we going to help people? Then it becomes what makes us the unique person to help them with XYZ, right? So a lot of 8s. This is great. Jai says, what do brands actually want if we were to promote them? Well, every brand's different, but I think exposure and trust. If, for example, Jai, you had an audience that trusted you, a brand working with you would want to see, in particular, some traffic and some sales coming from that. I mean, let's just get down to it. It's a business. Businesses want to make money. In addition to that, of course, they want to have somebody that's nice to work with, somebody that can have proven results, but also somebody that has a good attitude and also directly aligns with the mission and values of that company too, right? It's hard not to use formal voice. So true, right? Absolutely true. Andrew says, I have autism. How can this be helpful? I feel weird. Well, here's an example. Not to autism specifically, but, you know, first of all, I'm thinking of a show called The Good Doctor, and yes, that's a fictional show, but Sean, who's the main character, has autism, and he's a doctor. And although he has his challenges working in a hospital, he does have his advantages, and he is known as somebody who has certain superpowers and capabilities that others rely on and need. But the example I was thinking of before I thought of that one was related to a new show that I've discovered recently on TV. It's called Barter Kings. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this show, Barter Kings, but it's something that I was very excited to share with my son. And he took it hook, line, and sinker. Because this show is about two guys who trade up to certain goals. So, for example, the last episode we saw was one of the guys. There's two, and they're partners, and he wanted to get a boat to take his family on a vacation with, and he it was an $8,000 boat, but he doesn't pay cash for it. He started with, what did he start with in that one? I think he started with 2 gold-plated Elvis records that he had that were worth $150 each. So $300 worth of stuff. He traded it for this thing, then he traded it for this thing, then he traded it for this thing, and then he traded it for this thing, and then he got the boat, right? So upping in value all the time. And what I love about this show is that this is directly teaching my kids and me negotiation tactics. And it's so great because in this show, they talk about what's in it for the person who is there, right? So they traded these 2 gold records for $1,000 dirt bike. How did they do this? Well, they found a guy whose kid had broken a bone on the bike, and the wife was a fan of Elvis. And they weren't going to use this bike anymore. He was going to outgrow it anyway. But they soon discovered that the reason why this guy wanted these Elvis things was because the wife was so upset that the son had been injured on this dirt bike. So when they position it that way, hey, I'm sure your wife would absolutely love these, and I'm sure she's maybe not too happy about the fact that her son has a broken collarbone. He was like, okay, deal. And then the deal went to this deal, went to this deal, right? And I think that, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because one of the hosts, he has Tourette syndrome. And so when he gets excited, he starts saying these very loud words and starts like ticking and snapping his fingers. And in the very first episode, he addresses it straight up. And he often mentions it in further episodes. And he makes it just a part of who he is. And honestly, because of that, I got to connect with him even more. I got to root for him even more. I get to see when he gets excited about a deal, it's almost like a tell to me that he is super stoked on this deal that's coming up. And he's trying hard not to talk excitedly about this product because he doesn't want the person that he's trading with to know that he actually wants the thing. He often tries to downplay how excited he is about something so he can get a better deal on it. So all that to say is you can embrace this fully. And when you start to consider this thing something positive, it can become something incredibly amazing that can become a part of who you are and what people come to know you for. Bill says, "Hi, Pat, I'm Bill and help people. And people call me weirdo. So if Justin Bieber can have his believers, I've got my weirdos, Bill and their weirdos." I love it. I absolutely love it. Have you ever heard of an AFOL? AFOL. I talk about them in my book, Superfans. An AFOL is an adult fan of Lego. And an adult fan of Lego is a very special kind of Lego fan because, number one, it's a kid's toy. But number two, they've got some money to spend. And number three, they are often ostracized from communities because they're so weirdly obsessed about Lego. Yet, if you look up on meetup.com, there are thousands of members who are AFOLs who meet regularly to connect, to share the same language, to share the same passion and love for something. And yeah, on the surface, they're all weirdos, and they know that. Trekkies are super weird. Yet they all hang out with each other and go to conventions and dress up. Anybody at Comic-Con is probably a weirdo in their own interesting way, but you know what? That's where they go to connect. So the cool thing about being a weirdo is you're going to attract other weirdos too. And when you facilitate opportunities for not just you to talk to your weirdos, but to your weirdo to have your weirdos talk to each other too, that can do nothing but enhance your brand and build even a stronger connection with you, who you are, and what it is that you do, right? So hi, weirdos. I like that you were teaching your kids to communicate. I was taught how to treat people, but not how to talk to them. Yeah, it's such an important skill, and this is why I love sharing other people who do it, because honestly, I could just be like, hey, you should talk like this, or you know, how might you share this instead, or, you know, what do you, like, just, I coach through my kids through a lot of questioning. So that's why I always ask that, how might you do this, or how might one do this instead or something, versus like telling them. But even if I do that, like, I think we all just know that we only listen to our parents so much before it becomes blah, 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 blah. Knowing that, I like to find examples of others who are sharing the same kinds of things, right? I'm not quite ready to share Gary Vaynerchuk with my kids, but he says a lot of things that I want to be ingrained in my kids' heads. But things like this, watching Barter Kings, it's a fun show. They make it entertaining. But through that, I also know, and I can ask my son, like, hey, why do you think she said yes to that deal? Oh, because that would make... One thing that my son said the other day when watching Barter Kings, which was really good, was there was a deal where a guy was going to... So he had an ATV, right? Like a really nice one that could hold like 5 people. It was like covered. It was caged. It wasn't like a Yamaha one. It was like a different kind of one. It almost looked like a souped up golf cart, but it was for off-road. And this guy had an $8,000 customized bike in his garage. And this ATV was $4,000. So he wanted to trade a $4,000 bike or a ATV for this $8,000 bike, essentially doubling the value. And it was interesting because like on the surface, it's like that would be a really idiotic trade. But the reason why this person was interested in an ATV in the first place like this was because he wanted to go camping with his family and go out on an off-road with them. So the guy positioned it like this. Well, how well is that bike bringing your family together? Are you able to go camp and hang out on the bike together? No, that's actually quite unsafe. So you can just have that bike sit there and collect dust, or you can have this ATV and go out and go into the woods with your family and have fun. And the guy was like, yeah, cool. Okay, let's do it. There was another example. A woman had a $2,800 sailboat, and the guys who on the show had $800 air conditioned units. And this sailboat was just like sitting in the storage facility at this business, and they were looking for an AC unit to help cool down the building because they live in the desert and it's really hot. And the woman was just like, this doesn't make sense. Like, can you pay me $2,000 in cash since your air conditioned units are only $800? My kids are playing with the puppy. You can hear a lot of excitement back there. And Kimberly says, and I'm going to get your DeLorean shirt to wear for my channel. How awesome. Awesome, Kimberly. See, now you and I are connected because we both have this love for the DeLorean. I will have an actual one day. Anyway, this deal went down because the guy positioned it as, well, how well is your sailboat keeping your employees happy? And she's like, well, it's just sitting there in storage. They don't see it, and it's not doing anything. And he's like, well, imagine what they're going to feel like when they get to work every morning, and now the building is cooled down. Isn't that of value to you as a business owner? You know that the happier and more comfortable your employees are, the more likely you are to get a return on this. Your sailboat's just there doing nothing. And she was like, yeah, okay, deal. And so he was able to get a $2,800 sailboat with an $800 AC unit because of what was in it for them. And so I really love that. And so I love the, I really love the show and what it's sort of teaching the kids to see other people in real life trade up. I mean, even my son was like, hey, Daddy, what would you want for this cup? And it was like my cup that he just drank water out of. But I could see his brain going, right? And I thought that was really cool. Okay, let's talk more about being weird since we're all weird here together. Antonio says, normal is doing the norm to try and fit in. Different is stirring the pot and makes people uneasy. Nothing wrong with stirring the pot. Definitely nothing wrong. In fact, that's how we grow. But it's difficult because we are always in a position to be looked down upon if we are the weird ones, right? Whether it's at school and you're in the band and you get made fun of because you are in this band uniform and you play an instrument and you're not one of the cool kids, you're sort of conditioned to realize that, well, you're not as cool or you're not as fun as those other guys, right? And that's how I lived high school, not thinking I was good enough, not thinking I was trendy enough, and always wanting to be like the other cool guys, right? And that, if I could go back into time, I would just kind of find myself and just, Pat, what are you doing, man? Like, be yourself and find other people who will lift you up, and don't discount who you are. Anyway, I had very low self-esteem in high school, for sure. part of it was because I got picked on a lot because I was tiny, smallest kid in the class, like literally. Moving on. The idea that there are other people like us should be very encouraging. And that's who we have to seek out and find. Sometimes we get ostracized within our own families, right? Hey, you know, your two brothers went to college and got into these amazing universities. Like, why are you not getting good grades? Like, you have to be like them. And now it's like comparison. We're playing that comparison game when your two brothers are completely different people. Yet we try to balance appeasing our parents, but then also fully investing in who we know we are as individuals and what we like. Online and, you know, anywhere, there's cliques, there's groups of people who, you know, share all the best things, especially with social media and on Instagram. You likely follow some people who are always sharing the best frames of their day, right? And it's hard because we start to play that comparison game of who we are wholly with somebody else's highlight reel. And that's hard because then we start to fill in the gaps and go, oh, well, all their photos every day are these beautifully shot, edited photos of perfect times of their lives. Well, the rest of it must be great too. And then we start thinking about how not so great our own lives are, right? Shorty's Club, hey. Bandos. I was a bando, Joe. So this is very true, what Clementine is saying here. Accepting our weirdness is the first stop. Otherwise, it leads to unhappiness. For sure, for sure. And, you know, it's hard because on one hand, we're like, okay, well, should we just accept who we are and, you know, be complacent and, you know, this is the way it is? Or do we try to be different? And there's obviously a conversation that needs to be had within yourself in terms of, well, your limiting beliefs aren't who you are. And where is that line between where you want to be versus who you are now? And where is that influence coming from? And is this coming actually from within or from external? And what actually matters to you? Especially for younger people, it's so much, it's hard. Like, you don't know what you want. You don't know who you are. And that's why exploration and travel and experimentation with businesses and failing is so important because that helps you discover who you are. Right? It's like dating. Like you go on dates to experiment and be like, oh, I like this kind of person. No, that didn't work out. I like this kind of person. No, didn't like that. I didn't like how that worked out. And, you know, hopefully you land on somebody great. But you don't know who that is or what kind of person that is until you perhaps fail a couple times, right? Unless you get really lucky and you marry the love of your life straight away and, you know, you didn't have to worry about that. But Caleb says, thank you, Pat Flynn, for today's message. It's easier to be myself when I see others validate the same. They have apps that make you look chiseled, sharp cheeks. So funny. Doesn't last that long, people. Yeah, you know, that's going to be the interesting thing considering the future, right? It's like, I imagine a day where, very similar to Ready Player 2, this book that just came out, you're going to be able to take somebody else's form. This is like way out in left field, but super science fiction-like, but just imagine with me. I don't know if this will be within our lifetime or not, but I would imagine that our consciousness could be uploaded to somewhere and then be sort of masked onto another being or to another machine or something. And so now it's like, on one hand, it's like, oh, well, we're not even human anymore. This is a weird conversation. But at the same time, guess what? It's not what you look like that matters. It's not the form you take, right? It's what happens in here and how you express yourself and who you become in your soul. That becomes the unique thing. It's even going to be less unique when we all have these apps that make us look great or these augmented reality things that allow us to choose any avatar that we want, for example, right? Like that's crazy. But what is unique is still going to be the soul within. By the way, I think Soul, the new Disney Pixar movie, comes out on Christmas Day, if you're a Disney Plus fan. So just keep that in mind. And we're definitely looking forward to that. If it's anything like Inside Out, it's going to be a tearjerker, but also super cool and a conversational piece for sure. Pat, I was struggling with how I could help people build a legacy with sense of humor like mine, and you have told me to embrace it. And now the ideas have been flowing. Thank you, man. That's why I'm here, Darold. That's why I'm here. I'm excited. So, Darold, you are the one who has you had said earlier, if I remember correctly, that you just have like a weird, people call you weird and they just go with it, I think. I can't remember. But I remember you mentioning about that earlier, and I'm so thankful that we had this conversation today and that you sort of see the future and sort of how you can just be yourself, right? Heather says, I'm grateful for your high school experience, Pat Flynn. It makes you an amazing role model for teens having a hard time. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. I'd love to speak to teens more. I think that I have a unique ability with who I am to connect with kids. And definitely I want to be able to use that ability in the future for sure. I think this is what's exciting about my new Pokemon YouTube channel that's going to be coming out. Although it's a good mixture of both kids and adults, even adults my age and older who are getting back into Pokemon, who were once in it in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm getting obsessed with it, people. Like, all of my extra time that I have outside the business and outside of the family is used for research on Pokemon, on lore, on history, on art and collections and what's happening in the market and the industry. I'm so excited for it. If you haven't heard, I am starting a new YouTube channel, both for myself and a hobby, in addition to that, also just being a archive for my collection that I'm making. Something that I think would be really cool for my kids when they get bequeathed this. Someday they'll be able to consider the origin of when these things were picked up and how and why they were meaningful. I think that's really cool. My grandpa is no longer with us, but he has this amazing coin collection. And I haven't seen it in a while. It's at my parents' place. But it would be really cool if there was some sort of archive on how he collected those things. But you can be sure that in this new Pokemon channel, I'm still going to be fully myself. I'm going to definitely include some things that I know are going to stand out in this space, like some really good cinematography and some, this is a very visual hobby, and I'm going to bring the eye candy. I'll tell you that. But I'm also not going to be somebody who I'm not. And I found that in researching this space, even though I'm experienced with this, I still find myself getting pulled to go this way and pulled to go that way, right? Pulled to be like PokeRev, this guy who is super energetic and opens these packs super fast and sells them and gets everybody hyped up. And he's grown so big, and like a part of me wants to go to that direction. And then there's this other guy named Twice Baked Jake who's out there offering like the best advice on news related to the stuff that's happening. Oh, I could go that way too. And I'm like finding myself very similar to when I started business in 2008, feeling very compelled to be like somebody else because I'm not fully embracing who I am as I enter this new space. For me, I'm like, I'm not a Pokemon expert. I'm not. And I have to embrace that. If I pretend to be like I am, it's going to come through. It's never going to be as good as the other guys. But what can I provide? What is weird and different and unique about me that I could provide in this brand new space? So over time, you're going to see a lot of interesting case studies, experiments. I want to share with you sort of my findings as I start this new journey into a brand new space that I really have no business in, to try and become some kind of personality and influencer. And what's really cool about this and kind of where this stems from is this idea that the cards can be an amazing launching pad for the work that I ultimately want to do, which is to help educate kids and to teach them business and to teach them finance and to teach them investments and things like that. So I think that'd be really fun. I'm really excited about that. If you want to check out that channel and subscribe, I do have a trailer coming out very soon, probably by the end of the week here, if not early next week, that will be sort of hyping it up a little bit. And you're going to hear my voice. You're going to see me. And it'll be weird because it's going to be for a completely different audience. And I'm really excited to share this journey along with you and what I'm learning, what I'm failing at, what I'm winning at. And we'll see where it goes, but I'm really hot on it right now and I'm excited. You could find that if you look up here on YouTube right now, Deep Pocket Monster. So it's kind of double meaning, right? Like deep pocket, like money, because I'm investing, but I want to share my investment strategies along the way. But at the same time, Pocket Monster is Pokemon. That's what Pokemon is short for, Pocket Monster. So I want to go deep in the research and my findings and share what I learned along the way. So anyway, should be kind of fun. So Deep Pocket Monster, check it out, subscribe, and you'll see it. So it'll be really fun. I'm considering, okay, like, you know, first of all, really cool cinematography of the cards to be different. But that's fully me. I love looking at the cards. I want to embrace the sort of equipment that I have in this room and use it for good there. And then, like, I'm just imagining most videos are going to be me opening up a package, maybe even like first person seeing the package at my front door, picking it up, putting it on my desk, and opening it. And it's almost like you're just in my office with me, and I'm just gonna like tell you why I got this and how much I paid for it and what I'm expecting to do with it and why I like it, and really showcase the artwork at the same time, and, you know, not pretend to be like somebody else, but just do it in my own way. So anyway, Deep Pocket Monster, thank you. Would it be appropriate for my 12-year-old grandchild? Absolutely, Dawn. It's definitely going to be Pat Flynn family friendly, as you all know I like to be. But again, the other byproduct of this is I get to share from the start the journey of this new channel with you, and some of the things that I'm going to be doing that are hopefully going to work. And maybe if they don't, I can share maybe some insights on why. But I'm going to be trying with you. I haven't been in the trenches in a very long while to create something new like this. But the last times I've been doing this, it's been very informative to those who follow along. So I hope you'll follow along too. So anyway, I'm weird like that. And thank you for being here and weird with me too. So great conversation today. What a way to start the week. I think especially going into 2021, we can consider our weirdness and how we're going to embrace that into our content, into our programs, into our communication with our audience moving forward. So I appreciate you for coming in today. We'll have to do a time check on when I said the secret word, which is existential. I did drop it in a little early. I don't usually drop it in that early, but I think I was after 5 minutes, which is the rule. So we can maybe back check that. But anyway, if not, then I owe you a watch your mouth game on Friday. But anyway, Bernard says, now I feel weird. All in for the follow. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate you. We are 60 subs. That's cool. When did you officially unveil the channel? It was in front of you last week, I think. On a Sunday, I believe. Not this past Sunday, but I think the Sunday before. But I haven't unveiled it, or even I don't even have a video on it yet. So anyway, fun, weird day. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Hit that like button if you haven't already. If you're catching this and you've made it all the way to the end, thank you. And if you aren't yet subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and also the bell notification icon too. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I got to move on to another meeting today, and I just wish you a fantastic day. Whether you're at the end of it, at the start of it, in the middle of it, just thank you for being here, part of the community, and I look forward to serving you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to start at 9 a.m. Pacific like normal. Today was a little bit of a weird day because I had a call with a company that I might advise later, and I'm very excited about that. More on that potentially later. But, okay, Stephanie says, oh, we'll give it to you. Okay, cool. Thanks, Stephanie. You were going to be the referee, so thank you. Take care, and I appreciate you. Cheers. You're the best. And as always, Team Flynn for the win.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream. All while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Super great day. Thank you for allowing me to share this stuff and to allow me to be weird, and I hope this encourages you to be super weird too, and to realize that weird is good. It's not a bad thing. Thank you, weirdos. Peace out. I appreciate y'all.